Hey there Twisters, welcome back to another video. Now I've decided to make this video because when I do live streams or hockey hangouts, a lot of people ask me, so who is your favorite San Jose Sharks player of all time or on the current team? So I decided I would give you a list of my top 10 favorites. These are my favorites, they're not the top 10 best. Gotta make that distinction up front because believe it or not, I left a lot of, high profile players off of this list. The thing with the Sharks is that they've had a couple of real franchise cornerstones, but they've had a lot of other really solid players in their 30 years. Now, I'll also preface this by saying that I really didn't include anybody who was playing for the Sharks before the late 90s, early 2000s, because I didn't start really following the team until after the lockout. So guys like Sergei Makarov, who should be on my list, isn't actually on this list. He was an amazing playoff performer nonetheless. So I've actually run a small Twitter poll here as well, and it looks like from what I've pulled here that Patrick Marleau is the favorite Sharks player among the community here, with Thornton and Nabokov getting some votes. Also Owen Nolan, Chichu, Jones, Hurdle, Couture. Yep, so a handful of great players right there, but I have some other guys who are on my top 10 list. Remember, if you're new to the channel and haven't done this already, hit the red subscribe button down below and the notifications bell. I'm 15 minutes away from Sharks territory, so I'm always looking for ways to cover the San Jose Sharks in addition to other topics. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my list. First, I just want to mention my honorable mentions here. So as I said before, Sergei Makarov is definitely on there. It's crazy. Like Patrick Marleau, I have a ton of respect for this guy. And even the way that he's playing as a 40-year-old still impresses me, but he's not quite on my list, and you'll see my justifications. Joe Pavelski's not even on my list, as amazing as he's been in the playoffs and as a captain for this team. Devin Setaguchi, Brent Burns, Tomas Hurdle, Timo Meier, Vincent Dompoos, Jeff Friesen, Kyle McLaren, Wade Flaherty, Jonas Donskoy. There are so many guys that I could have put on this list, and I want to know who your favorites are in the comments below, so be sure to do that. But anyway, I'm going to kick off my list with a guy who might draw some controversy here, but I'm going to say Martin Jones. Martin Jones at number 10. The reason why I've put him on here is kind of twofold. First of all, this guy was incredibly important backstopping us in our 2016 run to the Stanley Cup Final. He was amazing against Pittsburgh as well, and it's a shame that he didn't get more recognition as a potential Conn Smythe winner. Unbelievable run there. And through the playoffs, he's been a pretty solid goaltender for us. Against Vegas last year, yeah, he was getting lit up in the first 4 games, but he made some insanely key stops in games 5, 6, and 7. And the other reason is that despite the poor seasons he's had and the dip that his career has taken, I just got a lot of respect for the guy for going about his business, not trying to blame anybody. He's just been taking the criticism as it comes, working with Evgeni Nabokov to hopefully work on some things. So I've got a lot of respect for this guy, and I'm always trying to give our goaltenders the benefit of the doubt, no matter who's in there. So Jonesy, you're number 10 on my list. At number 9, I've got a former teammate of his, and that's Brenden Dillon. So Brenden Dillon, he's not the most high profile of defensemen. He's not going to score 50 points. He's not going to, wow you with what he does in the offensive end. But defensively, he's really grown as a Shark since he came on board with the team in 2015. And it seems that gradually he was able to log more ice time, very physical player, and just do a lot in the defensive zone that might go unrecognized. And then offensively, he didn't really do too much, but I did think that his agility and ability to bring the puck up ice was something of note. And just for who he is as a person, that's the reason why he's really on this list. He's just one of the most down-to-earth hockey players, and that's saying a lot. Just one of the most approachable guys out there. I've heard lots of stories about people bumping into him and saying hi, and he's always willing to strike up a conversation, sign pucks at practice and whatnot. So I wish him the best of luck with the Capitals, and yeah, he definitely has earned a spot for what he's done over the years with his team. At number 8, I've got Ryane Clowe. Now, Ryane Clowe was a great power forward for the Sharks. He kind of came out of nowhere with the team, honestly. And over time, he emerged as a good power forward in a time when scoring was still pretty low, and you valued having that more physical guy up front to get in front of the net. Ryane Clowe could answer the bell for his teammates. He would fight. He was just a hard-nosed newfie out there, and a type of player that we don't get as much of these days. And yeah, definitely a fan favorite in the crowd for sure. At number 7, I've got Pickles, Marc Edouard Vlasic. So Vlasic has been playing with the Sharks since he was 19 years old, and he's just been an Iron Man. I know that he's kind of taken a step back, but nonetheless, just what he's done defensively over the years is pretty damn amazing. And even offensively, he's had a couple of seasons where he's kind of exceeded expectations there as well. I particularly have Pickles here for a couple of reasons. First of all, what he did in the 2016 Cup Finals run, shutting down some big key players out there, shutting down guys like Anze Kopitar, shutting down Vlad Tarasenko. That definitely speaks volume to what he can do defensively there, and shutting down Sidney Crosby to a degree as well. So he's had really good postseasons against top-line talent. I definitely want to point that out. The other reason is because I've always liked, even though he's been kind of sarcastic and sour at times to the media, at least he's always been very straightforward when the team might not be, able to admit its faults. So he's been one of the guys who I've always respected for what he's done in the locker room. And from what I've heard as well, he's also a very friendly person off the ice as well. So Pickles, number 7, and he also likes big fluffy dogs, so he definitely gets some kudos there. Number 6, Douglas Murray. Good old Crankshaft makes this list at number 6. Dougie was a fringe NHL player around the time of the 04-05 lockout, and then he eventually, kind of like Brenden Dillon, emerged defensively and was able to add a little bit more to his game, although Dillon may be a little bit better offensively. That's not saying a whole lot, but nonetheless, Douglas Murray, just a complete beauty out there. Just a really funny, kind of awkward guy, in interviews and whatnot. Look, the guy was amazing when it came to watching him lay big hits, and even more so when players would try to initiate a hit against him. 9 times out of 10, they would just bounce off of him. And so, and then he could also fight too. He was a really good fighter, and I don't think that he gets quite as much credit as he should around, the late period of enforcers. He was a good fighter. I mean, this guy went toe-to-toe with George Parros in college and at one time in the NHL when the Sharks and Ducks were playing. And then the guy does a lot for the Sharks in the front office now. And I actually got to talk to him, I think it was last year. I saw him out on the concourse, and I went up to him and I'm like, "Oh my God, Douglas, it's so awesome to meet you." And I said, "Hey, I was a big fan of, I always remember in 2008 in the playoffs against Calgary in Game 4, when you had fired that shot with like 7 seconds left, and it seemingly was you who scored." And he was like laughing about it too. He's like, "Yeah, I thought I was the one who scored too," because the guy never put goals in the net. So it was just fun having that quick exchange with him there. So yeah, I absolutely, he's one of the beauties out there for sure. So yeah, number 6. Number 5, here's a guy who's currently on the team, Logan Couture. And Couture, he could be even higher on this list for a lot of reasons. But when the Sharks had to name a captain, it was clear to me that Couture should be the captain, or Vlasic. I would have argued him as well. Kind of like Pickles, Couture has always been very straightforward with the media, critical when need be. Couture has been among the absolute best playoff performers in this era. So when you want to talk about, the Conn Smythe runs that Ryan O'Reilly has had before, the Conn Smythe run that like Ovechkin or maybe Kuznetsov had that year. I mean, Couture is right up there. I can't say that enough. For this guy to be able to carry the team on his back in the playoffs, you look at what he did in 2016. I've said it before. There's no reason why he shouldn't have won the Conn Smythe other than the fact that the Sharks didn't win the Stanley Cup, and I'll defend that to this day. A great captain for this team and a franchise cornerstone, absolutely. At number 4, here's a guy who kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because we've had Brent Burns for so many years and he's such a high-profile player, and now we have Erik Karlsson and he's sort of the same to a degree. But Dan Boyle, he, I think, is a terrific kind of proto Brent Burns out there, a great puck mover, and also just a guy who would always stick up for his teammates. He's not the tallest of players, he's not the biggest, but I saw this guy he was nasty. He was a nasty player who could initiate contact, hit back, and stick up for his teammates. And for a number of years there, definitely somebody who could add a lot offensively on the back end. So got to make sure Boiler is up there, and he just his memory sort of ages as a fine wine to me. At number 3, the guy who I kind of consider is the first great San Jose Shark, and that's Owen Nolan. Now, Nolan, he wasn't drafted by the Sharks. He didn't come up through the organization. But as soon as he came on board with San Jose, he was a big hit, and eventually he was captain. He scored a couple of huge goals for this team, and usually when I would go to games as a kid, Owen Nolan was, kind of the high-profile player. He was the guy who was getting the best chances out there. You look at that goal that he scored, I think in Game 7 against St. Louis in 2000. That's one of the greatest goals in San Jose Sharks history right there. You look at what he did in the All-Star break in 1997, calling his shot on Dominik Hasek and netting his hat trick there. When I think of the great Sharks captains, I know that Joe Pavelski certainly earns a spot there, but I would put Owen Nolan up there as well. And Owen was there at times when the franchise was facing, some difficult seasons as well. He's at number 3. And number 2, come on, I can't resist putting him on this list. I've got Jumbo Joe Thornton. Thornton, I think he just gets better with age in terms of, how he really stands out for this franchise. It's not just the beard. It's him in the locker room. It's the whole rooster trick mystique, I guess. It's what he's done at both ends of the ice and just some of the plays and the vision that he's had and how that's even matured into his 40s now. So I still see flashes of that from Jumbo. It's always amazing when he scores a goal because you're not expecting it. In 2011, he scored that goal to win the series against the LA Kings, and he slid on the ice, and just the bravado of him. I know that there are people out there who don't like Jumbo Joe, and I understand because at times he has played dirty. But you look at ways that he's kind of channeled that, right? He stood up in the playoffs and fought Ryan Getzlaf. It's a pretty good scrap. And then he stood in against Nazem Kadri and had part of his beard pulled off. So it just really adds to the legend of Jumbo Joe. And now this guy has just put up so many milestones. He's going to go up there all time as one of the absolute greatest playmakers, and I think a really good all-around forward too, being able to force turnovers, came up with that contested puck in Game 7 that led to the Barclay Goodrow overtime goal. There's not too much that you could say about Jumbo Joe, I don't think, so he certainly has earned number 2, and he's really kind of a 1B for me, because at 1A, he's not necessarily my favorite Shark of all time, but if I had to pick one guy, it's got to be Nabby, Evgeni Nabokov. This guy was at the top of his game when I came on board as a real diehard fan. He won the Calder Trophy. He was at times someone who could stand on his head. Not the best in the playoffs, but nonetheless, he had some amazing games. I think back to 2008 against Dallas when he made that save off of Brad Richards. I still talk about that on the channel. And really the best goaltender the Sharks have ever had. So he really proves his value there. Yeah, not exactly a Hall of Fame goaltender, but not very far off from that. He had nearly 300 wins with the franchise, and now he's a goaltending coach for the Barracuda and for the Sharks. And I hope that he can stay on the staff too with the Sharks because he was able to make some improvements there to Jones and Dell's game. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys, and hopefully this list can be revisited in a few years from now once we see kind of the legacy that guys like Hurdle and Meyer and Burns have left on this team. Anyway, I'm curious to know who your favorite Sharks are in the comments below, so sound off down there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and stick around for more San Jose Sharks coverage in addition to other topics that I'm covering on this channel. This has been Nick with Twisted Wrister Hockey. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon.